Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our next episode of our Diversity and Inclusion Speaker Series. Today I'm very happy and to introduce our next guest. It is Clarke. Kristy is the General Manager of Toronto 6, and we're very happy to have her today. And we're going to continue our discussion when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And welcome, Kristy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Maybe before we get started, for those who don't know you, maybe you could do a brief history of who you are and how you've come into your new position.
Yeah. How much time do you have?
Yeah, as long as you like.
So I'm originally from Scarborough. I played soccer my entire life. So soccer is my main passion. I went away for a soccer scholarship to Miami University in Ohio, and I did my undergrad there in kinesiology and health. And then I came back home for about a year or two, kind of finding myself. And then I actually went back to the States to do my master's while I coached the university team there, and I got my MBA. So I started off in the youth world. So I worked for Newmarket Soccer Club. Then I was recruited over to York United in the CPL. And then from there, because we share the same campus with T6 in terms of location-wise, I was in communication with their president for over a year. So when the role popped up, she sent me a message and said, hey, would you be interested in being a general manager for Toronto 6? Which I really follow kind of the Richard Branson rule. When someone gives you an opportunity, you say yes, and then you learn how to do it. So and I know what to do there. I know how to operate a sports industry. So it fits within my realm of I guess, knowledge and passion.
That's great. And, congratulations again. And, it's great to see female leaders in sport. And as I'm sure you're aware, it doesn't seem to be enough. And I see it as encouraging. What I was saying was, it's great to see female leadership in the sport community. But as you and we're all aware, there's not enough. And I think it's also great for young females and maybe young female athletes to see that leadership at the very top level. So
yeah, and I think exactly what you mentioned. This is the first opportunity where I'm not one of the only women in the room when we're having a meeting. My president is a woman or a female, but then also the assistant coach is a female as well. And in regards to what we're also going to be talking about in terms of diversity, the head coach, myself, and the assistant coach are also members of the Black community. And within the hockey world, that's kind of one of the first, especially on the women's side, to have that kind of framework. And I know one of our athletes spoke about this too, that it's the first time she's ever had a Black coach. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty awesome to see kind of the impact that we're already having even before we get on the ice.
Yeah. In relation to that, when you were young and you're playing soccer in the Scarborough area, mm-hmm. Was there anyone that was like you right now that you could look up to? Was it a coach? Was it someone in the community that you said, that's someone in my community that, I want to be like them, or they were just a great influence on you?
Yeah, I mean, I played in Scarborough until I was about 13, 14. Unfortunately, our teams folded at that point, so I had to look elsewhere. One of my biggest fans and biggest supporters is my mom. And my mom was my coach when I was younger, and then the assistant coach, and then the manager. So in terms of my other side, where I'm a mother, I always want to be that supportive as my mother. So I've always looked up to my mom in that sense. In terms of actual coaching and sports management, it wasn't until, also I had great coaches, and the administration at Malvern Soccer Club, and then Scarborough United was great as well. But the one that I really look up to is Tony, who was my coach at Dixie in Mississauga. And his goal was to get us, everybody on the team, a soccer scholarship. And I think we're one of the only teams that actually had that happen. We were in America every weekend at a soccer tournament, and every single person on the team, whether or not they actually went to the school, was offered a scholarship. And we all had the opportunity to have our university paid for, which is a huge thing, especially when you're looking at tuition. And I mean, if I didn't have that, it would have been really hard for me in terms of debt at this point in my life if I didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. And as we all know, tuition prices are going up every year.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned, being a person in the Black community involved in sport, what was that like growing up for you in terms of, did you notice, or was it made aware to you of you're a Black person and on the soccer field or trying out for teams or anything like that? Was there any experiences like that kind of made you think, what's going on here, or just those type of experiences, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So when I was younger, no. I played within Malvern, and the majority of my teammates were also members of the Black community. So I never felt othered. It wasn't until I started playing rep and we played teams from Peterborough or Barrie or etc. where I'm like, oh, we're the only ones here. When I started playing with Dixie and we did go to those tournaments in America, I would have family members in America, and they knew where we were on the field because we were the only Black people there on the entire soccer tournament. So it was really made aware to me that of who I am within the soccer world at that point. Is whenever I left my bubble, it was kind of just right in your face.
And were there ever, did you feel well, even though you felt, like you said, the other, did you feel welcomed as quote unquote the other, or was it the opposite of that?
Yeah, no, in terms of being Black and within soccer, I've always, I never necessarily felt unwelcomed. It was for the other aspects of my life, whether it's me being a female, whether it's me being queer. Those were kind of more of the overtly issues that I dealt with than myself being Black. I'm sure there was things that were said that I never heard, but those were more so at the forefront. When I was younger and I played on the Melbourne rep team, it was with boys, and I played with boys until I was 13. And we would play different teams, and they always had something to say about myself and another girl on the team as well. And I remember one boy kicked the ball out of bounds, like ridiculously far, and was like, "Go fetch," to myself. And I was like, why? Yeah. We're winning anyways, but why do that? But it was echoed from the parents as well, which was kind of even worse, because you knew where it was coming from, just the way that the parents were reacting to myself and my other teammate as well. And then in terms of being queer and within soccer, is when I was with Dixie and when we would travel, there was a teammate who, when it was kind of not known, but kind of maybe Christy's queer, was like, I don't want to room with her because I don't know what she'll do if we're in the same room together. And so that was more of like, okay, well, now I need to hide that part of myself because it's making this person uncomfortable, and who knows what it might do for the team morale.
And how did you, internally manage that? And like you said, you feel like you have to maybe not hide it, but not really fully, be you. Mm-hmm. How did you manage with those sort of situations?
it, in terms of being a woman, it was those kind of interactions didn't bother me because I knew my place, and I knew that regardless if I was the only woman or one of the only women on the soccer field, that I deserved to be there. And so that didn't necessarily bother me. What bothered me was when I was kind of trying to figure out my own sexuality and someone kind of, you know, having that much hate or, you know, ignorance towards it. That's when it really hurt and kind of really, you know, put me back in the closet. Publicly, privately, I was still discovering who I was, but I, you know, didn't share as much about myself. And I think it kind of hindered me in my progress because I was just so worried about people might find out this, or, you know, I can't do this because it's too obvious. And so I didn't really get to explore who I was until I went to university, and I made that conscious decision to be out and proud.
And when you went to university and you decided to do that, mm-hmm. How was that received when you said, no, this is me, I'm proud to be me? How was that accepted at, you know, while you're in the university?
Yeah, nobody batted an eye in university. University was an amazing experience, both soccer, but personally, education-wise as well. Nobody batted an eye. I actually brought my then girlfriend with me to prom that year, so that was more so of like my first coming out to the world. And I was surprised of all the good feedback that I received from that, because I was so worried about what people might think of me once they knew. Right. So it was great to see that, and then continue it into university and now in my life as well.
That's great, and those are obviously positive stories are really what we want to hear. Mm-hmm. If there's a player, whether that be at Waterloo United or any other club, or whether it be soccer, basketball, volleyball, hockey, whatever it is, what kind of advice would you give to that person? You know, if they're having, you know, the same thoughts and feelings and discovery like you were having, what kind of advice would you give either to your younger self or maybe an athlete today?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult, right? Because everybody's situation is different. Luckily for me, I actually came out to my parents when I was 14. So I wasn't afraid of their reaction. I was more so worried about the greater public reaction towards it. And so it's hard to give a blanket statement because you never know kind of, you know, who their parents are, who their friends are, and who their surrounding people are, and whether or not they have that person to be their support system. But for me, what I would say to myself is be true to yourself. And it gets better, and it has gotten better for me every year. Every time I speak about it, people that have reached out to me in regards to who I am and what I represent, it helps knowing that because I'm out here and I'm living my life freely, that it's kind of given somebody else something to you know, look at and be like, hey, you know what, I can do this too.
Yeah, and that's again, is that positive support, having great family and to help you is, I'm sure has been really the you know, the best thing for you, maybe a catalyst to say, you know, be you. And
exactly.
And that's really what we want to express to our, not just Waterloo United athletes, but any athlete, is it's okay to be you, and you should be proud of, you know, who you are, and whether that be your beliefs or your sexuality, and so on. And it's great to hear that from you and to hear those positive influences and experiences. So maybe let's you finished, if we move on and say, okay, you finished your playing career.
Yes.
And now you're looking to get into sport and maybe specifically soccer.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find that process of one, transitioning from, not playing, although you did say you were coaching, and maybe moving more into the, kind of the professional mode, if you want to call it that, of one being, a Black person, but then also being queer. Did you feel that had any effect on, your ability, not abilities maybe, but your process, or do you, of getting to where you are today?
Yes, and it's you don't want to get into the politics of it all, but when I finished my master's, my initial plan was to stay in America, and that was in 2016, and that was around the time it was the presidential it was a presidential year in America. So hearing kind of the conversations that were being had at that moment, and also in the surrounding people that I was associated with as well, kind of pushed me to come back home and be very happy to be Canadian and the freedoms that we have here. So that kind of changed my career path in terms of where I ultimately would land. And especially since this is going to be seen by kids, it's making sure that you're in a safe space with whatever you do is a big thing, and in regards to being yourself as well. But also in terms of career-wise, I always did a lot of testing of what I wanted to do. So when I was in high school, I did a co-op where I worked at the YMCA because my initial goal was to be a personal trainer. I learned that I did not want to be a personal trainer. And so when I went away for university, I was like, hey, you know what? I want to be a coach. And that was my focus. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, there was that year and a bit gap. I wasn't offered any coaching roles afterwards. So I actually came home and I worked for American Express for a year and a half. And my present to myself for Christmas was quitting, because I knew it wasn't for me and I only wanted to do things that made me happy. So I then again applied to universities, and I luckily was accepted by one and was made the graduate assistant there as well. And throughout that experience, I got to live my goal of being a university soccer coach. And I loved coaching the girls. I loved being a part of the team. But what I really enjoyed was kind of the behind the scene work, booking the travels and the hotels and doing sort of, recruiting trips and working with their education, making sure that they're going to classes, etc. Kind of all the admin work behind coaching at a university. And so I realized, it's not actually the coaching that I really like. I like the admin side of it. So when I came back to Toronto, I applied to a bunch of youth soccer programs in Ontario. And I wasn't getting anything at that moment. I was kind of getting discouraged. So I reached out to my sister, and she told me, don't be afraid to ask people for help. So I actually reached out to a friend that I played soccer with when I was 15, maybe for a week. It was a soccer tryout that I had. And I had her on Facebook, and I saw that she worked at the club that posted a role. And I said, hey, can you get me in front of your general manager? And she said, of course. And so I was able to get in front of the general manager at the time, which was Vicky Lowe at Newmarket Soccer Club. And we had a great conversation, and I ultimately received that role. And she was a great help in terms of me further developing my role and my goals, not my goals, sorry, further developing my, sorry, I'm blanking right now for some reason, further develop my skills within sports administration, because she brought me alongside her while she did work. So I started as the lowest ranking member at Newmarket Soccer Club, and then I became the general manager once she left the club. From there, I then was connected with the ownership group for York United. So once it was officially announced, I moved over to York United. Um, and that was a great experience for me to be a part of a team in a league that was brand new, getting the excitement for soccer in Canada, and it's still continuing today as well. And then because of that, and because of the good work I was doing there, the president for T6 saw it and decided to take a chance on me, because typical general manager roles include recruiting players and kind of talent identification, which I don't have in hockey, of course. But she said that for me, she knew that I had everything else. I had all the admin, all the operations that is required for the role. And we can kind of change the framework to make sure that the right people are getting the roles that are available and taking the chance on people so that we can start changing the conversation and really live the goals of T6, which is empowerment, inclusion, and education. So I'm really grateful for her for taking that chance, because I've been there for a few months now, and it's great to see a new world. I've been so focused on soccer and kind of pigeonholed myself in that arena that I didn't look outside. And now that I have, it's kind of, it feels good to know that my skills within soccer is transferable into hockey and to whatever else I may land upon in the future as well.
It's great. And it's nice, like you said, you can transfer those skills. You can move those skills, whether it's soccer, hockey, basketball. Sport is not that it's interchangeable in terms of obviously the skill set to participate in the sport, but to manage the sport. And I think that's amazing. And your short period of time being involved in sport, and your trajectory is great, and it's definitely something for young people to see and to aspire to be like. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you.
And you mentioned that Toronto 6, their mandate of inclusivity, and maybe you could talk about that a little bit, and maybe just explain exactly what that means and what they're doing to uphold that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the main thing is making sure that hockey's for everybody, and making sure that you're able to kind of see yourself within the community. So with us being a Toronto team, we wanted to look like we're from Toronto and that we represent all the various groups that we serve. So it's been really great working with the president and the head coach in regards to who we recruit for our team. Do they embody our mantra, and making sure that we live that inclusivity within the team. Also in regards to who has access to our games. Generally speaking, within hockey, it's kind of seen as a more upper class game, also a game to attend. So we want to make sure that, and part of why our prices are the way that they are, is to make sure that everybody has access to a game. We'll also be announcing shortly our program in terms of donations, that people can donate money towards tickets so that we can give it to underprivileged children. We'll also be partnering with another group that actually skates out of Canlan, which is called Heroes, and they serve underprivileged children. And we're going to do some partnership with them. We're going to have our girls skate with them, and also have those participants come to the game. And so it's really about trying to get everybody the opportunity to either work within sports, work within hockey, or be able to actually participate within hockey, or be able to view the game so that we can all kind of be in it together.
That's great. I wish more professional clubs would be like that and offer those kind of opportunities, but maybe they'll follow your lead.
Yeah. The hopes is that we could become a leader within the sports world, and that it can be modeled elsewhere. Because as I mentioned, I may not have the background in terms of hockey, in terms of talent identification, but we're able to kind of shift and move things to make sure that everybody's where they're supposed to be, and making sure that, you know, that we can have a person of my background in those kind of roles, so that we can make that pathway. We can have kids look up and say, hey, I see myself there. Because I think we kind of touched on it at the beginning. For me, I didn't see people of color in these kind of roles when I was growing up, still to this day as well. I didn't see people, I didn't see women, I didn't see queer people. So to be able to kind of embody all those three categories, and kind of, you know, be able to model it and show people that, you know, you're able to, like, if you see it, you could believe it, you could achieve it.
Yeah.
So that's really big for me. Being a mother myself is making sure that my daughter knows that the sky's the limit. And so being able to kind of help with that for other people, it's kind of a dream come true.
Yeah. Oh, that's, you know, quite inspirational. And I'm sure not only the athletes at Waterloo United, but everyone watching will take that to heart, and you know, will use those words to, you know, to help themselves. What I guess, you know, you've only been in the position a few months now, but what does the future hold for you? And you don't have to give too much away, you know, just in case your employer is watching. But you know, what do you think? You know, if we had this kind of conversation again in a few years' time, where do you think you would be?
My employer, who's Digit Murphy, she's amazing. And we have open, frank conversations every single day. I've been there now since May, and we talk every day. We have such an open conversation, open communication with each other, that she would not be upset by me saying that I'm coming for her position.
Good. Excellent. So, would it be hockey or soccer though?
I am currently enjoying myself within hockey, but I will never turn down an opportunity to work in soccer again.
Yeah, excellent. And if I can maybe ask you one more kind of question.
Of course.
I think you alluded to it just previously, but if there's a player or a coach or someone going through some struggles because of, and you know, they may feel like they're not being included because they're a person of color or because of their sexuality, what would you, it doesn't necessarily have to be one piece of advice, but what would you try to do or say to help them, to encourage them?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned prior, kind of to that example of that player kicking the ball away and saying, go fetch, that didn't bother me because I knew that I belonged there. So I think if you know that you belong on that team, you belong, you are the best coach, you are whatever in that moment, stick with that notion and don't listen to what other people are saying. As long as you're true to yourself and you feel as though you are the best person in that moment, it doesn't matter.
Great advice. Thank you. And thank you again for your time today, and sharing your experience and your stories and your life. And we wish you every success going forward with Toronto Six, and soon to be owner of a hockey franchise. But yeah, we'll definitely follow you and go along with you on your journey. And again, thank you. And We'll make sure we put up, if that's okay with you, some of your social media handles as well as the Toronto 6 in the video so people can watch and follow as well.
Of course. Thank you for having me, and thank you for making this platform available for us to have these conversations. Because as we mentioned, it's good to be able to see people and see people, I would say succeeding, but also just see people in those roles. Because as I mentioned, if you see it, you believe it, you achieve it. And sometimes that's just the way that it happens.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you again.
Thank you.